creating is an outlet. Some things are worth talking about and worth expressing and creating for. Veteran suicide is kind of an issue, and it's something that everyone knows about. People don't really talk about it. It's kind of a taboo topic. My goal for this project was to make something to raise awareness and to speak on my own personal experiences with this subject, because as a thing, it's difficult to not only overcome, but it isn't something often talked about openly. And there goes my power. An unfortunate thing I deal with on a regular basis. It's a pain in the ass. The materials used for this project in particular were from the fallen trees that I milled up. I have a video of that experience, cutting them up, getting them milled, getting them dried. Gave me quite a bit of nice white oak to work with. Also gave me a bunch of not so good stuff. So I'm using some of the odder pieces to put this project together, in part because they're just not really furniture grade material. There's a lot of bends and warps and stuff that I have to cut out in a way. So I end up with a lot of waste, and it can be a lot of work to get them to be usable. But they're still good. It's just large scale, not so much. So I end up with piles of waste. That is a frequent occurrence for me. I drop things on a regular basis. And I also run my materials sometimes a little heavier than I should. Now, like every good project that I tend to get my hands on, I always overcomplicate them. Necessarily, unnecessarily, it's really hard to say. So I could have just as easily glued up a large panel and taken the time to just use a board and then paint the stripes on it, and it would have been a lot faster and neater and simpler. But instead, I decided to take the variety of boards I had, and I pulled out the white strips, as you can see, which is the lighter colored, and used those for the white stripes so I wouldn't have to paint. It was a whole bunch more work, but I think the end result was a lot nicer. It was nice not having to use any paint or stain to create that desired white stripe effect. If you aren't aware, current statistic is 22 veterans a day commit suicide. And it's been that way, unfortunately, for quite some time. In the military, death and suicide are an unfortunate, common experience. I did 3 tours overseas, 2 in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan, and I lost several friends. Some were to enemy combatants, others were at their own hand back home. On my most recent tour, I received a traumatic brain injury from a vehicle bomb. It was something that required a lot of work to kind of overcome some of the changes in my physical and mental capacities. And that was back in 2013. It was many years ago. I did a bunch of therapy when I got back. I recently was having trouble functioning, and I spent a few months down in Georgia at a specialty clinic that dealt with veterans and TBIs, and they offered a lot of variety of therapies and other things that I got to do. But one of the things that was part of the program was the ability for me to write a song. And it's called Operation Song, and I got to work with Chuck Jones Music as the individual. I'll put a link to his YouTube. He's a fantastic singer. He's the one that brought this to life for me. And so I spoke about my history with suicide, because after my last tour, when I got back, I came close to being a statistic myself. At one point I was sitting on my bed with a loaded pistol and I was ready to pull the trigger. And it's a thing that I was able to reach out and ask for help. That's not something everyone has the capacity to do. It's a very isolating thing to feel that way when you are suffering and in pain, and it can be overwhelming and very lonely. I got to write a song and I wanted to share it with you guys. So I'm going to let it play as the rest of this build finishes, and I will see you on the other side.
The war was over for me, and yet I battled on. I tried to do it by myself. I wanted to be strong, so I built up my walls, a prison for my mind, pushing out my heart, pretending all is fine, swallowed up by darkness. I brought back from the front line, but a soldier never quits, so I fought for my life. If I couldn't take care of myself, how would my kids be alright? What example would it set to take the easy way out? So I stood up to the shadows and I battled through the doubt. I survived the torment and the pain. I'm so glad I never answered when the trigger called my name. When your hope has gone astray, good things still happen in your life. Even lost in the darkness, I still found my wife. The journey isn't over, I've learned a thing or two. I'm not defined by my scars, there's wisdom in my wounds. And I know I'll never quit, because I'm fighting for my life. If I can't take care of myself, how will my kids be alright? What example would it set to take the easy way out? So I stand up to the shadows and I battle through the doubt. And I'll survive the torment and the pain. And I know I'll never answer when the trigger calls my name. When the trigger, a soldier never quits, so I'll keep fighting for my life. If I can't take care of myself, how will my kids be alright? What example would it set to take the easy way out? So I stand up to the shadows and I battle through the doubt. And I'll survive the torment and the pain. And I know I'll never answer when the trigger calls my name. When the trigger, when the trigger calls my name. When the trigger, when the trigger, when the trigger calls my name.
You may notice this kind of changed. The reason for that, so when I had this idea, this concept, I was aiming for something a little more artistic, a little poetic. I wanted to set it up so that the 22 sat on top. Colors was to represent the blood of the 22, and it's clear up top because it's draining, and it was going to flow down into the stripes, and it was going to be like this big, cool artistic thing. And I did it, and it looked like a pile of shit. So I changed it because I was unhappy. Pile of shit. If you're new here, welcome. My goal is to make stuff and give it away, and I'm getting there. Look, I now have an office. My desk is finally done. I may be able to put together a short bit. I didn't really have a lot of good footage of me making this one. If you recall, this was full of wood at one point. The challenges that service members and first responders deal with on a day-to-day basis can be daunting, and it's important that they don't get left behind. And I think now more than ever it's important to show that these individuals are important. Here it is. We've got the F&D on the front, and on the back it says, "I support our front lines, foreign and domestic." The red represents our service member overseas, and the blue represents first responders and law enforcement. Now, you don't have to go this route to show that level of support. That's not what I'm saying. But if you're interested, I do have a link down below. If you or someone you know is struggling with suicide, please take the time, reach out, find a friend, a family member, professional help, and deal with it. It doesn't have to be a weight that you carry around forever. It is something that you can overcome. I'm rooting for you.